I just saw title of show, and I have a couple of things to say. For those of you who don't know, which is probably most of you out there, title of show is a musical written by Jeff Bowen and Hunter Bell, and it's a very meta musical about its own creation. I saw it tonight, and it was beautifully sung, awkwardly written, and wonderfully acted. It also was incredibly challenging. Wait, before you leave, this video is going to get very personal, so stick around. It's not all theater jargon. So first of all, I want to make it very clear that I saw this musical here in Fort Wayne. Along with an innovative and award-winning food scene, Fort Wayne is also home now to a newly emerging arts scene also. We're no Chicago or even indie, but there's a lot of growth and creativity happening here. This particular musical was performed at Three Rivers Music Theater, and it was very, very well done. Three Rivers Music Theater is a very experimental theater setup. Small shows, no mics, and a very, very intimate setting, which is perfect for this show. It was the perfect setting, the perfect crowd, and the perfect cast for our little city's production. I've seen it each of the last 2 nights. Now, overall, this musical is vastly ridiculous. In fact, my favorite actor in this particular performance was my favorite because he seemed like he's almost always in on the joke. There are very few times when this show stops to be serious, which is an issue with us millennials. We are almost never earnest because that's too cheesy. But when it gets serious quickly and surprisingly on a song called Die Vampire Die. The whole musical talks about the creative process, something I'm pretty familiar with and love. But this song talks more specifically about the vampires that rob you of your creativity.
The last vampire is the mother of all vampires, and that is the vampire of despair. It'll wake you up at 4 a.m. to say things like,
"Who do you think you're kidding?
You look like a fool.
No matter how hard you try, you'll never be good enough."
why is it if some dude walked up to me on the subway platform and said these things, I would think he was a mentally ill asshole. But if the vampire inside my head says it, it's the voice of reason.
And you know what? I have these vampires. Sometimes the numbers I get on my YouTube videos aren't the numbers that I would hope for. Sometimes I rewatch old videos and think, oh, Trent, you look so stupid. Sometimes I wonder why I continue to make videos. And those are just some of my vampires. But then I remember I do it because I love it. I love every subscriber I see. I love every time I'm able to have a conversation with somebody in the comments. I love being able to share my viewpoint with the world, even if it's a very small fraction of people who actually see it. I love that in a world filled with people who are sharing their truth, I have this platform to be able to share mine. See, I know that my target audience is very, very small. I'm complex, and so are some of the deeper themes of my videos. Just on the surface, I love Disney, Broadway, and cities. I'm a divorced man, and yet I hate divorce. I love urban spaces, and am fascinated by people of different cultures and creeds, and yet I grew up in the countryside at an intensely white high school. I'm politically a moderate, and yet I come from a very, very conservative Republican family. Most importantly, and above all other things that make me who I am, I'm a Christian, and I believe in living life for a gracious and loving God. But I hold no ill will to anybody who believes differently than that from me. And in fact, I would like to learn from them. I do believe in absolute truth, but I want to hear from those who disagree with the absolute truth that I so much believe in. I conflict myself as much as I conflict my audience. First of all, I don't know too many straight guys who would absolutely love title of show. Nor do I know too many people who believe in an absolute truth but aren't offended by the notion of their absolute truth being questioned. If I was smart, I would probably just make videos for one part of my audience. I should market them to either the Christians, or the gay Broadway lover down the street, or the dogmatic humanist, or the childlike Disney lover. But I don't, probably because my videos are weighted in certain directions. Because I am weighted in certain directions more than others. And probably more often than not, I don't even recognize it. But that's all part of sharing and living your truth. We're all different. We all come out of very different fabrics, very different backgrounds, very different communities. We all have different things that shape us. and we all can learn from each other. So when I feel tempted to quit making videos, I don't, because I love making them, even though I rarely release one on time. I love the editing, I love the conception, I love the watching, I love the learning. When I make a YouTube, I make it for me. I hope you'll enjoy it along with me, but I make it for me, ultimately. And sometimes I make it and I realize I didn't like it as much as I thought I would. Sometimes I think it's too long or too short, or sometimes I wonder why I even made it at all. But I'm glad I made it. It's one more way that I can share my little slice of life and hope that someone else may see some truth to my truth also. Even more so, maybe someone will give a second look at a grace-filled, loving God who wants us to live our life for him. Toward the end of Title of Show, there are two very significant songs, and these songs are me. The first is A Way Back to Then, which speaks of a little girl who wanted to do it all by the time I'm 10.
I aimed for the sky, a 9-year-old can see so far. I'll conquer the world and be a star. I'll do it all by the time I'm 10.
I was a little boy who was about 13 years old, and I remember watching Making the Band. Does anybody else remember that show? And I remember thinking at the time, I could do that. I could be that next pop sensation. Then as American Idol took off in its early years and into its fantastic rise into the American zeitgeist, I lived vicariously every spring as I watched people older and then younger than me compete to become America's #1 singer. Now, I know that in both these cases, the chances of me ever competing on such a stage would have been slim to none. These competitions are to find the best singer in America. Am I a bad singer? No. In fact, I make a living singing in church, leading a praise team, and teaching kids music. I'm not a bad singer, but am I the best in America? Well, no. Not by a long shot. And that's okay. My identity is not found in my voice. But I was a child with a dream, and in that way, I really relate to this song. I was in 7th grade when I first felt a desire to work in a church, and when my wife left me, I thought that dream was gone for good. I worked other jobs for a couple of years until I was able to find the position where I currently am. So when I see people on stage speaking in a raw and a funny manner about how they have experienced the fall and the rise of their dream, I identify and I cry and I laugh and I enjoy, and I see that I'm not the only one. I have experienced highs and I have experienced lows, and it helps me to realize that while we may believe different things, we people experience life in much the same way. And the last song. The last song is my favorite, and it'll stick with me for a long time. I guess it's not really the last song, but it was right toward the end, and it's the one that you remember when you leave. And it gives me inspiration. Simply stated, I hope that one day this channel will be 9 people's favorite thing instead of 100 people's 9th favorite thing. I think that's a good goal for anything. So if you're in Fort Wayne for some reason and you want to see a great show that may just inspire you, and you're old enough to be prepared for a show with some pretty rough language in it, go check out this show over the next 2 weekends. If not, then challenge yourself. Watch or read something that you don't agree with and find something in it where you can find some sort of common ground. Find something that encourages you to be more the person that you want to be. Have an open mind to learn through conflicting beliefs, but don't be so open-minded that your brains fall out. Make yourself better by challenging yourself. Growth only comes after challenges.